I really appreciate everybody coming out. I'm not very good at this part of it, but I have three guys here I know how to bullshit. Excuse the language. So I think we're going to put them out there and just let them tell some stories, because we have a legendary letterer and pinstriper that lettered most of the cars. And as far as I'm concerned, two drivers here that were pretty innovative back in the day in the sportsman division with the 6 cylinders and the Fords, and we'll let you tell them why they picked what they did and maybe tell some stories, and hopefully there's a fist fight that doesn't break out. So we're gonna, yeah, Jive, you got to watch out for. He's a little feisty in his old age. So you guys got any special stories you'd like to tell about the days in Santa Fe, or how you got started into racing? I know both of you had families in it.
Go ahead.
I want to know about this Mustang you had with the 6-cylinder. You know, tell me something about. Tell us something about that car.
Huh?
Can you tell us something about that car?
Yeah, I run Chevy 6-cylinders all my life, and then somebody let me drive a Ford once, and it was pretty darn fast. So I just said, well, maybe I'll try building a 6-cylinder Ford, see what happens.
Well, we all know it was the Ford, not your driving, right? So it's
Yeah, so I built it and went out and was winning features left and right, and then the officials at Santa Fe said, well, wait a minute, you're going too fast, we got to slow you down. So first they made me take the exhaust off, still winning. Then they said, well, you can't run the aftermarket intake. So we changed that and solved that problem, still winning. Then they come and says, well, now you got to run a 1-barrel carburetor. I said, no, now it's for sale. I'm done. And actually, Little John's brother ended up buying the car, and I don't know how it ended up after that.
Well, you guys were definitely fast. I mean, when I grew up, my dad was running demos, and back then, you sportsman guys ran on demo nights, so that's how come I'm such a big sportsman fan, and obviously watching you guys out there kicking everybody else's butt. So I think, Jeff, your cars were about Ford bodied, and I'm pretty sure they were Ford motors too, right? Yeah.
I had 2 cars at the time, and I figured I could I don't know if Joe was driving or not. I put him in the other car, which happens to be was his old car that I had bought, put Ford engine in it. It was a Nova, and we were on the half-mile show one night out there, and he passed me with it. I
said, off, didn't it?
I'm in the wrong car. So he probably would have won the feature. Something broke on the car or something. I believe I went on to win the feature, but if it wasn't for something breaking in the engine on that car, he would have won it. Possibly, I probably would have won it. But that was, it was actually both cars were him and Rossio cars. They built them both, but that car was superior than the one I had, you know. So needless to say, I switched to that car.
It only took you 40 years to admit it. So.
Yeah. he just showed me the car, so he remembers it thoroughly, you know, what happened. But I remember that it was a half-mile show, you know, and he passed me and I said, something's wrong here. So.
You know, what was so neat about it was being the guy that lettered a lot of these cars. I got to watch these guys build cars and take the most unusual combinations and make winners out of them. And it was really an honor to do that. And tell us about the time, Jeff, that you went to Kankakee with that Nova, and I think you won a feature, and they raised the hood and had a Ford engine.
Yes, that happened several times down there. Well, they didn't like us Santa Fe guys coming down there anyway.
Yeah.
Then, you know, we were beating them on the regular. And I think Joe was there tonight.
And the fence.
Yeah, the guy
took the fence down.
Yeah, I passed the guy for the lead, and he didn't like it, and he stuck me in the fence. And actually drove the car off the track.
Yeah, I drove it off the track.
Yeah, and but I kept going back, you know, and they soon become to like me coming down there.
Yeah.
And I was beating them on the regular down there with the Ford engine. Same deal, you know.
We all remember Freddie Royal, okay? Can you give us any history on Freddie, how he started out, and who got the car after he had it? And Jay Bowman, I think, wound up with that car.
I believe so. I think Joe would probably know more about Freddie's history with that car than I would.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But I think Bowman did end up with Freddie's car, didn't he? Or at least one of them, or no?
Yeah, he ended up with his last car that he had. And then I think Curly Kanansky ended up with it after that.
Curly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curly wound up with it, yeah. Curly was a special case. He was
yeah.
a pretty good guy.
There was a lot of special cases out
Yeah.
there. But, you know, just to bring it back to you guys' story, I mean, I know I'm sounding like the old man here, but back in the day, if your racer buddy needed help, you helped him. It wasn't all cutthroat, and like you said, you jump in his car. If you were running for a championship and needed points, you stop on each other's car, and it would be great, you know. And I know it's not that way so much anymore with all the big money and stuff that's in these cars, but that's why I think all these things are family and were built on family because of things like that. So, and I'm sure there's 10 other stories you guys can tell about hopping in other people's cars when you needed to and sharing parts, and you guys broke, you all helped, we got together. So
That's a sad thing about it. They're pricing everybody out of racing. You know, to buy a late model engine or even a modified engine nowadays, I can't imagine what kind of money you'd have to come up with, and it's really stupid. You know, these promoters need a good kick in the ass. They really do. We need
imagine what a six-cylinder
we
would
need
cost.
classes where we can get the little guy back in. Seriously.
Yeah, that was the thing about Santa Fe. One week you're this guy's worst enemy. The next week you're giving them parts so we can get back into the race. I mean, like
Jeff
Fred
said,
Royal,
beat you.
I miss that guy dearly, and we were the best of friends, and I shared some of my secrets with him.
Not all of them.
Well, I know
Not
for
all of them.
I know for a fact you guys helped a lot of people get into racings yourself over the years. Like, you know, I talked to Mike Afrano a lot, and you're the reason he's into racing. By the way, Mike Afrano owns Crew Clips in Sherwood, Illinois. And we get together and we almost have to rip each other apart from telling Santa Fe stories and stuff like that. So we grew up there. We all loved it. I'm sure a lot of you people did too. And like I said, going to demos when my dad was racing on Friday night, these guys were racing out there, and that's why I become such a big sportsman here. Guys like these two, John Garrett, Al Madden, Freddie Royal, Jay Bowman, and all of them. So,
We can't forget Lee Byers.
Lee Byers, yeah. Lee Byers was a little bit
absolutely.
before my time driving. But
Little John.
yeah, and even those guys, they were all supporters of the races and stuff. So Santa Fe wouldn't have been what it was without these people. So
And actually, I started out racing at Raceway Park back in '71. Well, that's telling my age.
don't let the Raceway guys hear that they don't like me.
And that was also a tight-knit group of people. I mean, they help anybody just like they did at Santa Fe. But dirt always paid more, and it didn't have to cost as much for tires.
And you used to be able to take the same car to both tracks. And when my dad started racing, he went to whoever paid the most show-up money that night. So, now, Joe, your brothers raced too, and Jeff, yours did too, no? Or you guys, your brothers raced? Your brothers both raced? You guys had brothers that raced? No? They would just help you with the car and stuff? Yeah. Joe, you had brothers that raced too, didn't you?
Yeah, I had two brothers that were, well, actually, all my brothers raced at one point in time.
Which was harder, racing against these guys or racing against your brothers? I know racing against my brother was a pain in the butt. We'd have Jive tell more stories about the garages, but I don't think there's a mixed company here. I don't think we can do that. So
I can't tell the stories that I know about.
that's what I'm saying. Restraining orders and stuff like that. So.
I remember going in garages, tripping over engine blocks and cylinder heads and stuff, and breaking ribs, and, well, not breaking ribs, almost breaking ribs.
And that was sober.
And they, a lot of the heat in these garages were salamanders, and it's a pretty dangerous way to heat a garage. Lee Byers, by the way, used to paint his cars with Rust-Oleum and mix the paint with gasoline and stand there smoking. You know, so
And I remember guys used to do that and put it on a hot plate to get it to flow better.
yeah, I remember coming out there. You'd sit in the grandstands and look at these cars on the track, and you'd say, boy, those cars are nice. They're really smooth, and, you know, you'd go down on the track, and you could run a dog through the holes in these things, you know? And I'd be over at Lee's garage every week touching cars up, Ed Farrell's car, Lee's car, you know. And it's just something I did every week was either letter a car or touch a car up, you know. But it was a good time in my life.
Well, you brought a lot of joy to a lot of people and a lot of aggravation to some too. So, well, but see, this is my point about all this, and this is why I want to keep this show going. Is because these guys here are the reason why we're here and why we all love racing. And even though one night, like I said, they were fighting one night and punching each other out, the next night they were working on each other's car to get them back out on the track. So, and Tommy, you want to get up and tell some stories? You got anything to tell? I'm sure you got some stories about us too. So. But anybody want to ask you guys some questions or no? I'm sure this young lady in the second row's got some stories about Jeff she might want to tell. You might not be able to tell those either, though. So
Actually, the car that Jeff bought from me, the Omega, that actually started out as 6-cylinder 2 late model.
oh
with
yeah,
an
you were a
automatic
late model too.
transmission.
Yeah,
And it used to blow away some big blocks.
there it was. If some of you don't know Joe was the rubber ducky special. He always had the rubber duck on the top of his car. So, but these guys were heroes and legends of mine when I'm growing up.
I don't know about that.
Not that I'm any younger than these guys, but
We had fun.
well, a little bit. But so I just want to thank you guys very much for coming up and telling these stories, and we appreciate you coming. And hopefully we can come back next year in March and have more people here and more stories to tell. And I think I don't know if Jeff's on Facebook, but both these guys are on Facebook. Make sure you look them up and friend them, and there's all kinds of old pictures. And
Oh, yeah.
if not, friend me, and I'll make sure I get back to them and hassle them for pictures and stuff. So, okay. Thanks very much. Jeff Elder, Joe Rossio, and Bill Jive Jarvis. Thank you guys very much.
Wayne Adams Jr., Bill Service, Roger Smith, and four-time late model track champion Pat Eklund here today. Give him a hand, everybody. Yay. We'll start with the man to the far left, Wayne Adams Jr. Familiar name. Tell us a little bit about memories of Raceway Park. You were a track champion in the old novice division there, but you go back long before that, basically, I would believe hanging with your father out there. Of course, Wayne Adams Sr., the longtime track announcer who passed away here several months ago, and we miss Wayne very much. Wayne, tell us a little bit about those days of Raceway Park that you remember basically as a kid.
I remember going out there every night with my dad, and it was amazing to watch him work. I mean, he was the best. He was the best. I grew up watching Kaler, Pronger, Janicek, all those guys race, and I sat up there as a kid and I just analyzed the way they drove a race car, and I thought to myself, I am definitely going to drive a race car. There's no doubt about it. It's going to happen. And I think everybody knows that story about the first night I went out there with my 56 Dodge, 6-cylinder, piece of junk. But I was on the racetrack. That's all that counted. And Bob Tulaski, I don't know, is Bob here tonight? He's not here. Okay. Bob Tulaski called up to the judges stand, and he says, who's this guy, Ennio Smata? Well, we put the name on the car backwards so nobody would know.
Especially Dad.
And my dad says, who is this guy? And Bob Tulaski told me, he says, well, I didn't want to tell you this, but it's your son. And I guess Dad just about fell through the floor. But he never knew I was even building a race car. He had no idea in the least. And we just went out there and just got our feet wet, and everybody passed us on the outside, and it was a joke, but I was racing. That's all I cared about. And of course, like I said, I've been going out there since I was old enough to know what a race car was, and I went every single night with Dad. It's just something that just grows on you. You can't drive a race car, and in fact, I've told people, if you've never driven a race car, find somebody that's got one and take it on a racetrack. Find somebody. You've got to drive a race car. In fact, my little sister, is she here? She's coming up here? My little sister drove at Raceway, too. My other sister is chicken. She might break a nail, so she's not going to race.
She drove a bus.
Yeah. But, anyway, we won the championship in 1966. And we tried to take Roger out of the starter stand a few times. I wanted to make sure that I rubbed the door handle on the wall when I went past him. But anyway, we tried late models. We ran there a little bit too with the 72 Javelin AMX, and I don't know what else to say. That's how I got involved in racing. So, but Dad was the main thing. He's the reason that I even got involved in racing.
No doubt. Let's hear it for Wayne Adams Jr. Bill Service. I remember talking to you at Iliana years and years and years ago, and you said, I think you told me you sold beer at Raceway Park back in the day.
No, it's peanuts.
Peanuts? Peanuts. Get your
Peanuts.
peanuts.
And how I got started at Raceway Park is my dad was a pop vendor, and he needed somebody to to fill the cups, which was a 12-ounce cup back in the day. You say ABC on it. And every cup I filled, I got paid a penny a cup. All right. Well, you know how much money you could do? Go to the go-kart track across the street for a penny a cup. So then my dad became a beer vendor. Then I became a pop vendor. And I had a guy named Roger Rubino. Anybody know Roger Rubino?
We've heard
Roger
of him.
Rubino used to work for me, and I used to pay him a penny a cup. All right. And then... well, as the years went by, and then we sold peanuts and all the other stuff, and then went to Navy and left Raceway Park. And then I got divorced and bought a race car.
It's usually the other way around, I think.
Yeah, it is usually. It was kind of backwards. My ex-wife was from North Carolina, did not like racing, so something was wrong with that picture. So then I ended up getting endurals and doing endurals, and then we lost Raceway, which was really pretty sad. And really liked the Raceway Park a lot. Spent a lot of time there, and went to Iliana. We had some good times at Iliana and some racing, and that's how the life has gone. And this is my father-in-law right here. So I married the former flag girl from Raceway Park too, to put that on the note. Right, honey? Karen. Say it, wave. Okay, thank you. Okay. So that's the story of my life.
Well, you did pretty well there at Iliana. You won, 4 or 5 track championships in the street stock division. And you're still racing, I guess.
Yeah, I'm still
Matter
racing.
of fact, you were at Grundy County Speedway last night.
Yeah, we won't talk about that last night. Last night was
All
not
right.
a good night.
Bad night.
Bad night. But I'm only doing like part-time races, special events. But Iliana, yeah, we did very good. Won 5 championships at Iliana. And ever since 2013, been this part-time, trying to live my youth, which is getting a little bit harder, and especially when you get around those golden years. You know,
Don't talk about the golden years.
Yeah, there ain't no
Just
golden
ask
about it.
Just ask Pat Eklund.
Yeah, he's a little bit more golden than I am, but
Yeah, I remember going to Raceway as a kid, and he was racing out there.
I'm, we race, every Saturday at Iliana. I would like to know how these drivers did Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That had to be one feat to do.
It
That
sure-
was really something.
it had to be.
How you guys did that. Oh, that's
Eklund says he was young, so they could do it back then.
and how many cars were really stolen back then?
Bill Service, thanks a lot.
All right, thank
Former
you.
peanut vendor at Raceway Park. Let's hear it for Bill Service. Moving the microphone down a little bit here. Longtime Raceway Park starter, not a flagman. The flagman's the guy on the highway. But Roger Smith, good to see you today. Roger, the check's in the mail, by the way.
I'm still looking for the first one.
Well, keep looking. I remember going out to Raceway Park in 1969, and young photographer, and Perry Luster told me to watch whatever these 3 guys or 4 guys do and tell you. And it was Smokey Smith, Pat Smith, Smokey Jr., and Roger. They kept a young guy from getting run over there at the world's busiest track. Roger Smith, always good to see you. Another guy, a youngster, you probably were there for many, many nights when you were just a snot-nosed kid.
I started out just like Wayne, going to the racetrack with my dad, sitting in the grandstands, watching him. He worked the lights in the infield, the caution and green. When Tom Plozak retired, he took over as flagman. God, I don't know how long, but he had a mini stroke in the 70s. I ended up talking to Blanche Jenin, and she said, "Do you have flags?" I said, "Yes, I got his. It's your job." And that was, like Bill says, 4 nights a week. And when you had the fourth fall in the middle of the week, you ran almost a whole week sometimes.
Well, I remember Wayne Adams telling me back in the early 50s they considered running there maybe 7 nights a week because, you had 100-plus cars in the pits and the fans were just jamming the place night after night, 4 nights a week. Well, maybe we will run 6, 7 times a week. I don't know how you'd keep a car running, but wreck one night, go to the junkyard, get another one, that's all.
Yeah, but it was good times. I had a good time at it. I hated to see it go, but in one way, it was nice. I have my weekends off now. I can do what I want.
Really, what you want to do, huh? The wife
Yeah.
has nothing to say about it.
No.
All right.
No. And then,
Liar.
like Stan said, when he came to the middle of the track pitchers, we kind of told him, never turn your back on these guys. Just keep aware. Well, all the years that I worked there, I was the first one that got hit in the infield. Had a car on the back stretch come off the wall, and it was like once they hit the grass, you had no idea where they were going. And I lucked out. It was one of them dwarf cars. And when it got close, I just jumped as high as I could. It spun me around, but I was fine. If it had been a regular late model or a street stock, it had really done some damage.
The late Roger Smith.
Yes. Late. Yes.
I mean, your dad was there for many, many years. Your brothers worked there. You worked there for
Yeah.
many years. You married into the family, I'm told, so.
Put me on the spot, huh?
Yeah, figure,
No, there was a lot of good memories. I mean, I made some good friends with more of the second generation, I call them. The Pat Eklunds, the Walt Myers, them guys there. It was like we had a good time. Pat, the Walt Myers, I'd kind of stick my foot over the wall, and they try to run into my feet, scrape the wall during qualifying or hot lapping. And we had a good time. We're still all good friends.
Or not see the yellow flag.
Yeah, or not see the yellow flag or the black flag. Just keep going. But no, I mean, we had a good time.
Roger Smith, it's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you. The check is in the mail. Trust me.
I'll be looking this week.
Roger Smith, everybody. Well, our final contestant here on Jeopardy our final interview this afternoon is 4-time late model track champion, known to some people as just simply the Stick Man, or Pat Who, but Pat Eklund. Pat Eklund, everybody. 4-time late model champion at Raceway Park. Pat, I remember you and a fellow by the name of Tommy Turtle at Raceway Park, and I hope nobody's here that's going to get us in trouble, but you'd run a race, go into your van, had a television in there, had some cold beverages.
And it
Oh.
had rained out.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even raining. I think it was sunny that day. And then, it's a heat race now, Pat. You better go out there and race. And never mind, don't tell that story. But Pat Eklund, what do you remember way back when? You grew up, I believe, in Calumet Park and right down the street there.
Running
from Blue
4
Island.
nights a week is probably the biggest memory. Boy, you never stopped. you never stopped. Obviously, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday you were busy all weekend. But like you just mentioned a little while ago, if there was a holiday, well, Memorial Day, you'd run 2-3 features on that day. You'd run a feature on the other 2 or 3 days before. If the 4th fell on a Tuesday, you were running 5 nights a week. It was pretty busy.
That's why they called it the world's busiest track.
That it was. That it was.
Of all those championships, and I remember starting in 6-cylinder cars, and that couple of memories, highlights of Pat Eklund's racing career at Raceway Park.
Well, I'll never forget the one night we did set the track record with the wedge car. Your dad came down after the races and said, I almost didn't give that to you until the second lap. You were faster than the first one.
Maybe the clock was wrong. Huh?
Exactly.
Maybe.
Yeah, that was quite a memory, especially when you had Wayne coming down to talk to you. So
Kind of a big deal.
yeah, it was.
You know,
Yes,
you
it
talk
was.
about Wayne Adams. I remember a fella, I won't mention a name, but he just told me, he says, I was in the pits, I was at Raceway Park, had never run there before, and here comes Wayne Adams, and he doesn't know me from Adam. And he says, well, what's the name, what's the hometown, have you raced before? And this is Wayne Adams talking to me, and kind of a big deal.
Yep, yes, it was.
He treated everybody pretty equally, whether you were Bud Kaler or Johnny Racer,
That's for sure. Yes, he did. Probably the other one that sticks out in my mind is my first feature, late model feature. Turtle and I had built a car together. Just so happened that Bud Kaler was in that race. So the one and only time I got to beat Bud for a feature anyway.
That's what counts, those memories.
And I remember him coming down and saying, well, this is one you'll never forget. And I haven't.
Good. Thanks, Pat Eklund, 4-time track champion. Again, Wayne Adams Jr., Bill Service, Roger Smith, and Pat Eklund. My pleasure to talk to you guys this afternoon here in Peotone, Illinois.
Thank you for having us.
A lot of you people don't know these guys because you never saw them at the racetrack. You saw them at the garages and stuff. But these are my heroes growing up, and these are the reason I do what I do. And believe me, I've ripped off their work a lot over the last couple of years. But exactly. So I would like to introduce to you my heroes and the men that made these cars look good and made the sponsors look good and paid the bills for these people. So I'm starting from that side. Bill Jive Jarvis, Tom Evans. I'm going to call him Stitz because every time I mess up his last name. And this is Joel/Peter Pan Peters. And these are the legends of stock car racing in the Chicago area and other areas. So, they've leathered all the way cars from street stocks at Santa Fe to NASCARs and ARCA cars that run at Daytona. I'm not very good at this interview thing, so I'm just going to kind of put the question out there. If there's any interesting stories you guys want to tell or feuds you've had over the years over the cars. And you're all involved in another charity called the Brushmasters, which is very dear to our heart and their heart. And anything you guys want to talk about, stories you want to tell, just have at it. Jive?
Yeah, these guys you see to my right here are the reason I got into this business. These guys are all my heroes, every one of them. I've watched these guys work from the first time I got into it. I got into it kind of late, but Joel Peters, unbelievable stuff that he's ever done, and I've imitated a lot of it. Kenny Stitz, what can I say about him? The guy is just a fantastic artist. Tommy Evans here, some of the best airbrush work I've ever seen in my life comes from this guy. But they're my inspiration. Like I say, I got into it after these guys started. But they're the reason I do it. Have you ever seen Shake, Rattle, and Run? It's Kenny Stitz right here. That's some of the best gold leaf and silver leaf you've ever seen in your life. Tom Evans here, I've seen some of the semis he's done with these, I guess, Frazetta-type murals and stuff like that. It's just unbelievable. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let these guys take it from here. Thank you.
Well, I think one of the important things to bring up is the fact that the difference between when we started doing it and what it is today, you know, as far as the time we spent in the garages and the shops, you know, when you lettered a car, hand lettered a car back in the 60s or 70s, you got to be kind of an intimate experience, actually. You're going to be there for 8, 10, 12 hours, you know, sitting on a milk crate or, you know, and sometimes it, you know, it really went off into the night, and you know, a lot of great stories, a lot of great things happen. Some of those things we can talk about, some of them we can't. But yeah, there are some adventures. There's no doubt about that. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff. I was in a garage one time on the north side, lettering a drag car. At 2 o'clock in the morning, a couple of the guys were kind of dozing off, falling asleep while I was lettering. And the police, the Chicago police, come running in the garage because they had what they weren't correct, but they had somebody's name that they were looking for, and somebody said he was going to be in that garage, and but it was a scare for me because they come in, a couple of them had their guns out. They well, yeah, I don't know. I said no. I just, but what do you call it? It was pretty crazy. They rousted everybody out. We had to leave the garage, and they were looking for this guy. You know, and they didn't find him. He wasn't there. But it was just some crazy experience that happened in the city back in the day. You know, so yeah, no, it was a lot of crazy stories, a lot of crazy people involved, and it was a lot of fun. It was an era that you don't see anymore. That's for sure. And I'm sure all you guys have stories as well. It was a different time. You know, and that's kind of helped make it what it was too, you know. So, how about you, Joel? You must have been in some truck garages and some stock car garages.
Oh, absolutely. You know, how many are cold, unheated, poorly lit, and you're standing in water garages where they're all over the north side, south side. I remember lettering a truck in Calumet City, and the guy calls up and, hey, I got a truck to letter. Okay, he says, you got some heat? It's the wintertime. You got some light? Yeah. Okay, and I get there and I'm standing literally in a pool of water with one bulb and no heat. One time I went and lettered a garbage truck in South Chicago on Thornton Road there, and a brand new building, 9 bays. They weren't finished with the building, they had a little turbo heater at one corner, 9 bays away where the truck was. It never got warmer than 30 degrees in there. So I parked my car next to the garbage truck, and I would letter for 30 minutes, sit and warm myself up. Letter for 30 minutes, and but you wanted to make the money, you wanted to satisfy the customer, so you did that kind of stuff.
Yeah, once you're there, you're there. You know, you want to go back home with some cash. You can't say able to come back tomorrow. You know, I had one too, doing a stock car number on a roof of a stock car, and so we didn't have all the lights on in the garage at the time, and so I did the rest of the car. So now I'm going to go up on the roof and get that going. And it's nighttime, and I start painting, and then somebody came in and flipped on the switch for the one light bulb in the garage right above the number, and it was like mosquitoes. Every mosquito in Chicago showed up, to be on that number, and it was just a lot of crazy stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of the guys. Today everybody has really nice shops too. Most of the race car guys really have appointed places to work in. But back in the old days, people were doing this stuff behind their homes, and put you into some awkward situations, no doubt about it. Tom, say something.
Tom, tell us about those murals you do on the side of semis and stuff. Where did you get the inspiration for that?
The things we do for money.
Yeah. On a Harley Davidson, he did the fairing on it. He put this beautiful eagle and an American flag on this fairing on this bike, and it was a pearl white bike, and the mural it was stunning. I saw the picture a friend of mine had the bike. Skip from Lockport. He had the bike. Now,
was
you talk
John
about,
Wayne.
huh?
That was John Wayne on that one.
Oh, it's John Wayne. I'm sorry. John Wayne in a flag?
American flag.
An
yeah.
American flag. Okay. But anyhow, Skip, I seen Skip a few months later, and I said, "How's your bike?" He said, "Well, I was riding through this little town, and it was a sunny day, and a tree fell on me. A tree fell on the guy. You talk about luck. Anyhow, the tree fell on the bike. This guy spent days in a hospital. The bike was trashed, but he saved the fairing. I guess he's still got it around his house, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got a clock in it now.
But anyhow, so sometimes this beautiful artwork gets destroyed by the biggest freak of nature. And Tom isn't much for talking, but I can tell you right now, I'm speaking for this guy, and he does some of the most fabulous work I've ever seen.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm among the best here. I didn't do a lot of stock cars, drag cars, signs, midgets, but not many stock cars.
Yeah, you did some of the tightest work out there, though. Your stuff was always really tight, really, really detailed, and really great stuff. No two ways about it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, you're I worked for you for a while too, and I had to step up my game a little bit. I mean, but I had another story too here. It was the night I was at Wally's Easy Go on Western Avenue, in Blue Island, lettering Ray Young's car, and I had just about finished up. It's about 2:30 in the morning, and I'm just letter the just passing through on the back of the deck lid of the car. And who stops in is Jerry Kemperman and Paul Bauer. And they were out for the night, so they saw the lights on in Wally's, so they stopped in, and they came in while I was finishing letter on the car. And they get to talking between one another, and they're kind of arguing about something, not paying attention to the wet lettering on the car. And then I notice on the back of Paul Bauer walks away from the car, and I notice on the back of his pants the just passing through in reverse, which just told me he leaned into the back of the trunk lid with the wet paint, and now he just has just passing through on the back of his pants. Anyway, I got to redo that now, of course, and so I got into it with them because, they, like I said, they were out for the night, so they, I'm harping about the lettering and everything. It turned into a kind of a brouhaha. They finally wandered out. I don't know where they went. But that's just another passing story. It's one of those adventures, another one of those kind of nights, so. Yeah, it was always something when you're going to go out like that and spend that many hours someplace, So.
I would just, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the name of a guy that inspired a couple of us. His name was Art Dexter. We took a lot from that guy. Okay, he may be a different type of guy and not very sociable sometimes, but he inspired us, definitely.
Yeah, he was somebody that, he was one of my heroes. Danny Collier was another one too, but Art was a guy that really did, lively, kind of like bouncy lettering, a lot of cartoons and stuff like that, and was definitely inspiring, without a doubt. Yeah, he was. He could be a thrill to be around sometime. Not always. Not always something you want to talk about, but yeah, he was a great sign painter, and he did a lot of work. Real fast sign painter too. Yeah. He really did a lot of work in the course of a day. But yeah, no, there was a lot of great times with all that.
Joe Mahalik too.
Yeah, Joe is another guy. Joe was a great pinstriper. He had his own style of striping. Didn't he have the wheat stalk, the wheat stalk style thing going on there for a while? That was all the rage for a while. But yeah, Joe was another one, and there was a couple of other guys who are no longer with us.
DJ.
James, Donald James.
DJ.
Yeah, lettered lots of drag cars, all of Mr. Norm's, Grant Spalding stuff, and he did a bunch of stuff. And it was also the Jag painter, Glenn Hansel, was another guy, did a lot of drag car work back in the day. Yeah, and like I say, Danny Collier. Danny's not here today.
I wish he was here.
Yeah, no, Danny's got some great stories, I'm sure, you know. But yeah, no, it was always an adventure. You never knew what was going to happen when you pulled up to the garage or the shop, you know. So, but yeah.
I'm so honored to have worked with you guys. Thank you.
Same here, though. I mean, everybody, you know, every time you went to the racetrack, you saw there was something new lettered. You went over, looked at it, and see who was who's doing what. You know, who's up on their game. You know, so it was another, it was another world, another environment. You know.
Well, I want to just say first, I know I say this a lot, but now that we're on video, I want to really say it. Hopefully it'll last a long time, is what an honor and a privilege it is to be sitting here with these three guys. 'Cause I've known them all off and on for 40 years. When I first started trying to be a lettering and striping guy in 1971, the only thing I had to go by before they had magazines and the internet was the guys that you saw at US 30, at Raceway or Santa Fe, the cars that were lettered there. Or if you got lucky, maybe you saw commercial vehicles they did. And I always wanted to be like two people back then, and that's Kenny Stitz and Joe Mahalik and Jive. I met Tom much later than that, but I wanted to be like them, and I had more vim and vigor to do it than I had common sense. And I met Jimmy when he was 11 years old. But anyway, I wanted to be like them, and I wanted to do the quality of work and the style that they had. And I go to Raceway, and I would see all these just beautiful cars that Ken lettered, and then I go to Santa Fe, and all the cars that Jive lettered. And there were other, guys that were in the business doing it then, but they were the hallmark. They were, to me, the top echelon guys. I met Jive in 1974 at the World of Wheels car show, and I was striping the door jambs on this real wild custom van. And he walked out and extended his hand and introduced himself. Hey, I'm Jive. And he told me about the 00 green ferruled Mac brushes. He says, because I was using a square-handled Grumbacher. Yeah. And I was using the wrong brush. And he told me about it, so the following week I went and got one, because he says, it'll change your life. And I says, okay. So I went and got one, and you know what? It changed my life. I didn't see Jive again for 18 years until the late 90s. And I seen him, and the first thing out of his mouth was, hey, did you try the new blue ferruled Mac 10s? And he says, it'll change your life. And sure enough, it was an even better brush than the other one. So that's one of my fondest memories of Will here. And then Kenny here has always been a super nice guy. And I see him at car shows mostly. And so all those cars, the amount of history right here and the custom lettering and striping, it is unfathomable, here in Chicagoland. And there's a lot of other unsung heroes that, have come and gone. But, you talk about sign painting. Not only that, it was a racer, but Ray Schilstel over here. Super sign painter, self-employed for a long time. Then he worked for Van Brogen Signs, one of the top sign shops in Chicagoland. So, it's just, I never was a Raceway guy per se, although I was a fan. I lettered 2 cars there, back at the Packers in the 6-cylinder and late model division that probably only lasted a season. But I gained, some notoriety at Santa Fe. I lettered a lot of cars there between 79 and 84. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. And, I got something to look back on that. And I'm very lucky man.
Yeah, it was kind of a different time, too, as far as the amount of, people have to realize that, back in the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, we had, 4 drag strips in the Chicagoland area. We had 4 or 5 stock car tracks, dirt and pavement, and you can extend that out if you want to bring in Waukegan and some other places that were tracks as well around. There was just a lot of racing, period. I mean, and you really had a half a dozen guys in the Chicagoland area that made a living. You know, I mean, sure, you did trucks and signs too, but for the most part, most of your world was centered around lettering race cars and the car haulers and trailers, and a lot of the guys had tow trucks, and you know, there was just that much racing, and that spurned why we're here today. Really, you know, that's what brings us all together is the sport, and it was just that much work. I mean, it was just that much work around, plus the touch-ups and. You know, a lot of the guys had sometimes 2-3 cars in the course of a year. You know, towards the end of the year, guys start putting a car together for the Bentonhausen race and stuff like that. And you know, they're going to go to Florida or something or whatever. You know, a lot of guys had 2-3 cars in the shop. You know, so there was a lot of work to be done. It was really quite something at the time. You know, an era that's definitely missed. That's for sure. That's what we're trying to capture here today, actually. So is that period. So.
You know, not only in this business, race car lettering, but any business that you go into, and this is for the young guys, you want to get better at something, talk to the guy that's better than you. And you try to measure up to what he's done, because that's what we've all done. We've tried to measure up to somebody that was better than us. And that was it.
Yeah, it's that inspiration. You know, like I say, you go to the racetrack and see what's going on and see who's doing what, and, you know.
Try and outdo them.
Yeah, try and outdo them. Just make sure you're not missing the boat here on something, you know. And there were certain fads. There were certain things Art Dexter did that I, you know, when I was younger, I latched onto, whether it was the stars or the
Or drop shadows.
The drop yeah, Joe Mahalik and the drop shadows. And,
oh, yeah, he invented that, remember?
yeah, there was all kinds of crazy controversies about stuff like that, yeah. So, but that was all part of the whole circus, you know. You know, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if I can expand on that, when I was coming up, and I had to be Kenny, I had to be Joe, and I had to be Jive here, and I would letter stock cars and tow trucks, not for the money, not to impress the customer, or hoping or maybe that these guys might see it in the pits or on a trailer somewhere or hauling some car to the junkyard, and I could impress them. I mean, that's the honest to God truth. I did it, you know, to try to be somebody. And, you know, for most part, I don't think I achieved that, but at the same time, you know, just being able to sit here with these guys is a lot of fun. Now, Tom here, I didn't meet Tom until about 1975, and he was working for a sign shop in Mokina called Letterman Signage. And I went in there for a job, and Larry Hansen that owned the business, I went in there with my picture book and tried to talk to him about getting a job there. They didn't need anybody, but I remember Tom. Tom was such a tall. He was lettering a 4x8 sign. May have been even bigger than that. And I remember he had very dark hair, dark brown hair, and a dark brown mustache. You know, and he's pretty much like he was pretty much like he is today, very quiet. That's my first recollection of Tom here. But again, to parrot what these guys just said, awesome custom letterer and custom murals and artwork, just a phenomenal go-to guy. You know, there weren't a lot of custom guys, you know, that could do the kind of work he did, but we're real lucky to be able to enjoy his work all these years.
Thank you.
It's the truth. It's the truth. Yeah.
I'm at a loss for words.
That's a shock. Okay, well, hey, thank you very much. Here you go there, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jim.
Just on my note, all these guys here, they're not that much older than I am, so don't get that, but I remember walking to school and passing shops where he was working and looking in the window to see what he was doing in there lettering race cars. Stitz, if you lived on the south side of Chicago, you didn't go a block without seeing a truck, or Hollingshead Oldsmobile was my first experience with you. And the most beautiful trucks in the world you ever want to see. Mr. Evans, I don't know that much of your work. I've seen your work. I don't know you that well, but it's inspiring also. Jive, what's to say, you know? He's crazy, but he's all right. And if there's anybody out there that's coming up in this business, whether they're vinyl or hand or whatever, look to these guys for their inspiration and work, because these are the guys that built this business, especially when you were in Chicago. And I think growing up in this town, that some of the best sign work in this country has been done in Chicago by guys like this, and Uncle Ray here, and Bob Bohanik, and so many other people. I mean, Chicago is a who's who in the sign industry, if you ask me. And
Uncle Ray.
yay, Uncle Ray. But that's enough about me, and these guys have been such an inspiration to me, and one day I hope to live up to their expectations. So
Thank you.
thank
Thanks
you
for
guys
doing this
very
show,
much.
Jimmy.
And
Thank you very
guys
much.
for your support too. You guys have always been behind me, even though I'm a vinyl guy. So, okay, guys, thank you very much. And
Let me tell you, he just called himself a vinyl guy. He grew up in an era where vinyl and digital wraps, the whole digital takeover of the industry. He's not a brush guy, but at the same time, I got to tell you something, and I want to get this on some film here. He's probably one of the best and greatest sign designers and lettering designers and logo designers around. You talk about someone that, colors.
Colors and layout.
You know, these decals that he puts out for all these Raceway Park stars, they're phenomenal. I can tell you. You know. Well, you had something to go by, but to do that kind of stuff on a computer, as a designer, and how he puts things together, and all this custom stuff he does. This guy's right in here with us as far as a legend here in Chicago, in my mind. There you go, buddy.
well, thank you guys very much again. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show. And next year, just for the video, we're moving it back to March, and there'll be a lot more people here and a lot more fun. And God willing, a lot more racers to talk to, because to me, that's what this show is about, is memories of these guys and drivers and the fans. And some of our biggest fans are right out here in the front of here. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Jimmy.